Yeah, so first and foremost, get the foundation right. And it's amazing, even with all this information and knowledge now, the amount of conversations I have. I had a debate with one of the clients the other day, and she said, well, I said, so we agree, and everyone agrees, so I just expected her to agree. I said, so we agree that you get the foundations right, so you're doing your training, you're doing your diets, you're sleeping well, you're doing as best as you can, and then we build the peptides into it. She went, no, I actually disagree with you. I said, okay. She goes, I need the peptides to give me the energy to do all those things. I need the peptides, but are you trying? She goes, I don't want to try because I can't. I'm like, okay. So we had to make an agreement. Can we just do at least them simultaneously? So if you're going to start the peptides, then let's start that. So getting the foundations right seems obvious, but not everybody does that. So for the weight loss, depending on how much weight you need to lose, but doing the GLP-3 along with a growth hormone secretagogue, that's really good. And you know, with growth hormone, it's not just about growing muscle and body composition. It's about sleep. It's about energy. Skin. So it's anti-aging. Epitalon I really like. That's the first one I did 11 years ago. So that was created in 1982 by Professor Cavinson.
What's the biggest benefit of using that?
Epitalon, it balances out your circadian rhythm. So the foundation of, so it really increases deep sleep. So when you take that 20 days on, 6 months off, 20 days on, when you cycle
so
that
every 6 months,
I've got a little sort of cheat code now, so I run the penile capsules in between.
Yeah.
So, but just one box a month for 10 days. So I'm doing that in between and then jump onto the 20 days. And that just that's been shown over 7 years to increase your telomeres. So it's reversing aging at a cellular level. So while you're taking that, you'd expect them to be decreasing more slowly. So that's an amazing anti-aging. I think that's one that might be looked to be regulated soon, I'm hearing, but we'll see. And then the cognitive performance, cerebralizing, which dihexa, really good for neuroplasticity. I really like that one at the moment. That's a capsule. And the C-Max and Solank, and even there's another one we're looking at now, methylene blue and oxytocin, as like a feel good. It's for libido, but it's really good as a pre-workout.
So I take all of those, but I think again, like what the fuck does what? Because I take so many. So dihexa I take with modafinil. Methylene blue, I don't know it's any difference other than it turns my piss blue. And I think it helps my digestion a bit. I don't know it's anything from that. Dihexa I think is great. But for me, I find it kind of an interesting game of kind of experimentation to see kind of how certain things kind of react and kind of feel with me.
Yeah.
But I think it's kind of like a balancing act of also not trying to throw like everything in at the same time, because you just don't know what to kind of do what.
Yeah, common sense. It's intuition and common sense. Having a bit of experience with peptides, use them, work for a professional, go on your own after a while if you want to, but understanding how your body reacted previously. And as I say, just listening to your body and intuition is so important, but very overlooked.
Do you think people need to adjust their training or recovery when also taking peptides? Is there anything they can add in addition to the obvious of like eat properly, work out, that can accelerate some of these things? I know I mentioned earlier in terms of like hyperbaric chambers, like red light therapy, cold exposure. Is there anything else you think that can maybe accelerate some of the peptides and their effects?
I think it's basically what you're saying, but it's sort of the other way around. So getting all I know it's boring, but it's getting all the foundations right first. That just doesn't mean eating right and sleeping right. That means all the biohacks, if you like. So the hyperbaric oxygen chambers. This is all. So like the peptides are the icing on the cake, so you need to make the cake first. So you make the cake with all these, Good
analogy.
Yeah, so if you make the cake first and then we put the icing on top, then that's how you're going to optimize your peptide outcomes. We know things that numb and block peptides is things like alcohol, lack of sleep, overtraining, processed foods. All these things block peptides from optimizing. So the less you're doing those things, the more optimal the peptides.
Is that because of too much oxidative stress?
Basically, yes. Yeah, especially from the overtraining. Yeah, but
I think I had that where last week I suddenly put my back in spasm. I just felt wrecked, and I worked out I probably hadn't taken a day off for like 5 weeks.
Okay.
And then I was like, well, this is probably why. So this is also, I'll give perspective on this as well. It's like one of the things Alex was trying to push me to do, which I don't do enough. It's like every 6 to 8 weeks to take like a longevity recovery week, or to take a week off of training and then take maybe slightly higher doses of peptide. Epitalon is one of them, to try and just like drive recovery and longevity rather than just kind of battering myself into the ground. Because a lot of people listen to this are probably very type A kind of personalities as well. So you have this mentality of like more is better, as often the time it's the worst thing you could probably do. Absolutely.
And that's the same with the peptides. More isn't better, less is better generally. And the one thing I've learned when I turned 50 is I changed my protocol to train. Mentally, it was really hard to accept. It's just come from a training background, sport, just train all the time, feel better, get my best results. And I stopped and I started training every other day.
Okay.
And it took me a while to get used to it, but body composition wise, I've put on muscle. I think you said since
Yeah,
last year.
you did it way more jack than last year. I was like, what have you been doing? Peptides work.
It's the rest.
Yeah.
So it's the resting and just allowing the muscles to grow, have a rest. Use that day as a active recovery day. Saunas, ice baths, hyperbaric oxygen chambers, whatever. And that's been the biggest game changer for me. It's lowered my oxidative stress levels. When I go to the gym, I'm more motivated. In fact, the day that I rest, the night before, I'm so excited to go to the gym. So I've just, my whole oxidative stress levels are gone. I'm more motivated. And sometimes, it sounds ridiculous, but sometimes I go to the gym now and it's almost like before game day.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm like psyching myself up. I'm getting
excited.
nervous. Yeah, so for me, that's been the biggest game changer. But then I'm a bit older than you.
I've noticed the same thing. When I look better when I take a few days off training, because just from the stress, and I think inflammation kind of just drops out of you because you get so inflamed. And almost I get to the point where I'm like, most people are trying to like out eat a bad diet. I'm trying to like out eat over training. So it's like I just keep trying to throw food in to try and like offset that I'm kind of fatigued, and it's just that's literally throwing more stress into the system by forcing more food in, and it's just like a vicious
central
spiral.
nervous system is it's smashed. So even the central nervous system bioregulator, I run that once a month as well now for 10 days, and again I just feel that I'm recovering so much better.
Let's talk about that then. So like stress is one of the big things that's hammering society. What are the big things we can use peptides for to try and pull down that level?
So the central nervous system bioregulator. So there's 21 bioregulators.
Is that the capsule one?
That's in the capsule. I mean, Epitone injection is a bioregulator. Most of them come in injectable form as well. But when you know that the capsule efficacy is so high, not as high as injection, but it's still high enough just to manage it properly. So I really like the central nervous system bioregulator for that. Regulates the central nervous system, obviously. Selank, as we mentioned before, just to regulate your mood and generally just helps you feel less stressed. And delta sleep inducing peptide, taking that as a protocol to balance out your cortisol rather than just for sleep, even though you do sleep better, but it's more of a cortisol balancing peptide.
Okay, so then it's just having that kind of arsenal of peptides to the side. And do you think, this is one of the things I've found, is that over a period of time I've almost like accumulated all these peptides that then I don't use them all the time, but then like as and when I need them I can kind of dip in and then I've got it kind of on hand, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. When you know what you're doing, that's really, because you know what works and what doesn't. I think, okay, when I go skiing, when I go skiing, I take BPC with me without a doubt. So BPC is in the fridge just in case. Thymosin alpha 1 I take when I travel. So most people, I get them just to try it 2 or 3 times a year just to modulate their immune system, regulates their immune system also. And I've done that, so now I just have it on hand. So if the kids are going to school and everyone's sick, I'll start taking it then. If I'm travelling during the winter, I'll take it then. When I'm travelling to Dubai, I'll take it then. So just having it on hand and ready to take as an example.
And then, so a lot of people might be asking that, like, can you travel with peptides?
I mean, I've been travelling peptides for 11 years. I don't know anyone who's had a problem. And I think with the rise of the GLPs and everyone walking around with pens, if you've got peptide pens, people that just look at my skinny pens anyway. So, I mean, I probably wouldn't travel to Mexico with a peptide just in case, or America, but generally around Europe, Dubai, I've never seen an issue. And they are just amino acids. So, even I've heard of some stories where customs, what's this? Think they found something, they've gone online, check what it is, it just says it's amino acids. You can legally travel with amino acids.
And do people need to keep these refrigerated or cold when traveling with them?
Yes, so depending on the peptide, whether it's been reconstituted or not, or the peptide pen, so we recently spent 30,000 euros on more independent testing. That's one of the things that I think we're going to talk about shortly, but that's one of the things that the company that I've partnered with, this is one of the things we're really pushing is independent testing. And because one thing is you get these COAs, and the COA has been tested by the lab. Generally, it's in powder or lyophilized powder form, so they've tested that. Now they put it into the vial, so that's when the contamination starts, but that hasn't been tested because it's in a vial. So then it gets travelled around the world from China or wherever, goes to wherever it goes, and then to your door. So now it's travelled around the world. We don't know where it's contaminated anyway, and then you just inject yourself with it. So it took me a while to get my head around the pens, because the pens are stable for 2 years. So everything I'd learned about reconstituting peptides and how quickly they degrade was out the window. So I had to do a lot of testing at first anyway. The lab we work with, they work with children, oncology in children, CGMP certified, non-human contact, really, optimal lab. So they give you a proper COA that includes endotoxins, a QR code so you can check it. But then I still wanted to do further tests, or we did further tests recently. So we shipped it from one lab to our fulfillment facility, so that's 3 to 5 days. From our fulfillment to the lab in Czech, that was another 3 to 5 days. So now it's travelled for 10 days, at essentially room temperature because we put it with an ice pack, but essentially it goes to room temperature. The ice pack's keeping it cool. And then we run a 16-week testing cycle on all of them to activate it, because that's when it starts to degrade effectively. And most of the most popular peptides are up to 6 weeks now, and we're running a full 16-week protocol, testing it every 2 weeks, all obviously very low on endotoxins. And there's been no degradation. It's not degraded at all. Any peptide, not one, for 6 weeks.
I think for me personally, the pens is a really good move in terms of from a peptides, but from like ease from a consumer standpoint, it's way better. And also I think from Gen Pop, people feel less like a heroin addict getting like needles and vials and stuff out of a kind of fridge. So I think it makes it a lot more user friendly for, I think, the normal person.
Yeah, they've been very, very popular the last 2 years. It changed the whole business model, and they just arrived into the UAE today, actually. So
really,
yeah.
Under the Bionic brand,
they will be both. So we have the UAE Peptides. So that'll be the UAE Peptide brand. That's a reusable pen with cartridges. It's the same lab, but we just have a reusable pen, so you can just buy multiple cartridges, put it into the pen. And the Bionic will be the disposable pens.
And then in terms of like the businesses you had, did you think when you went on this kind of peptide journey a few years ago, you'd kind of be sitting in a situation where all these peptide companies and everything kind of exploding?
No chance. I've got I'm being invited into some entrepreneurial podcast, and they say, you've got to tell us how your foresight. I didn't have any. I just, I set up a company because, of course, I've got a passion for it, and I wanted to try and get it to as many people as possible. I wanted to work out customs and logistics to get my own peptide selfishly, and just learnt more about it, had a real passion for it, and it just seemed to gain a lot of interest from people.
What do you think is the biggest thing you've learned on that kind of journey growing the businesses?
On the business side?
Yeah, on the business side.
Letting go of control, not being a control freak. I've always been very lucky with teams that I've worked with over the years in different businesses, and I've managed to keep them with me. My operations manager, I've worked with him for 20 years. My customer service person in the UK, 9 years. The person here in the UAE, 8 years. So that's like the foundation. And then it's just, so of course I trust them, and then it's just building the bigger team to trust and letting go of actually the things I'm not really good at. I'm not good at social media, I'm not good at marketing, I'm not good at logistics. I'm just good at talking about peptides.
But I think that's also why you've crushed us, because you're clearly incredibly passionate and knowledge about what you're talking about. You're not just trying to sell it to try and make a quick buck, which is I think what you can see a lot of people are trying to do kind of online right now, trying to like jump on the bandwagon, because you see a lot of people just like white labeling stuff and then just trying to throw it out the door almost.
Yeah, I mean, one guy said to me, "Why do you feel good about yourself buying peptides for $5 and selling them for 160?" I was like, I wish. I was like, I don't know where you're getting your peptides from, but we definitely don't. It costs more than that to make them, and sell them for that. So that's a standard business model. I've seen people say, let's get into business together. We get our peptides here for $5. We're selling them for 70. I said, no, we work on a very different business model.
Well, yeah, that's where also you're going to have a longer term clients. I think that's probably one of the most interesting, exciting things I think about the peptide industry is it's like once you start, you're not going to really stop, I don't think.
No.
Like once you're down that rabbit hole, you're kind of like in. It's like when people say, "Oh, I only want to do a fitness plan for like 12 months." I was like, dude, like fitness is the rest of your life. It's kind of like the similar thing in terms of peptides. Once you kind of see peak performance, you're going to want to keep chasing peak performance, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And people are always looking for something new. That's the thing. And the thing is, the new peptides, there's plenty been, our lab are working on, I mentioned the GLP-4, 5 and 6. That's interesting, the additional agonists that they're adding. Potentially it's going to be IGF-1.
So that's what I'd heard. So you have the ability to basically help you drop body fat and suppress your appetite, and then also build muscle at the same time.
Build muscle and clotho.
Yeah.
And a myostatin inhibitor again.
So the myostatin inhibitor is that thing they have in the Belgian bull cow that's like super jacked. We put a photo on screen if we can edit that in. That's what it's from, right?
Yes, exactly.
Yes, that's the myostatin inhibitor. It can't stop building muscle.
Yeah, commonly used follistatin. Okay. But I think we're still trying to find the right follistatin compound. But these, when it goes to the pharmaceutical industry, fine, because they can do all the human studies. For me, peptides are great because I trust them. I'm very comfortable with the process. I'm happy to trial and error. Once you start talking about these master proteins and follistatin, follistatin is an inhibitor. So once you use the word inhibit, we're not optimizing, we're inhibiting. And that's where we just need to be a bit careful, I think. And that's why we need a bit more data before we start, injecting ourselves with too many inhibitors.
So one of the things obviously you are working on is, and you've spoken about before, is like bioregulators being like the next kind of frontier. What's the difference between them and conventional kind of peptides?
So a couple of analogies here, so I apologise in advance. So peptides are always simplified by they target receptor proteins, which I say is a doorbell to the target area. So they ring the doorbell, run away. It's like knock down ginger when we was a kid.
Yeah.
So you run and knock on the door. And that's why we tend not to see side effects. It doesn't stay in the body for too long, just ringing the doorbell, creating the dogs barking, kids running around, just creating activity in the house. Bioregulators, they're from animal, they're natural source. And they sort of sit on they match the amino acid to the amino acid in the body for the 21 different target areas, and they sit on the DNA. So they don't change the DNA, they sit on the DNA and they amplify it. So I call this like a dimmer switch. So it needs to either, we know, to make it more brighter or make it less brighter. 9 times out of 10, we're making it more brighter. We want to optimize the epigenetic environment. But for thyroid, so if you've got hyperthyroidism, you might want to deregulate it. If you've got hypothyroidism, you might want to upregulate it, and that's what the thyroid does. So that's what regulators do. They regulate your biology, bioregulators.
So one of the, I've taken bioregulators like in a cyclical nature in the past. What should people try and, is there any way they could kind of track the results from any of these?
So there is so we had Professor Cavinson, who I spent quite a bit of time with before he passed away, and he amazing. I mean, the amount of information you got from him on the human studies, and they do have human studies in Russia. But a guy called Dr. Bill Lawrence from the US has been running these for about 8 or 9 years. Our sales director actually is one of the people that he's doing the tests on, and he's shown the only one that I can think of specifically, but it's almost like what it's shown, that it can reduce your telomeres from slowing down and increasing over a 7-year period. It's basically having that same effect for all the different target areas of the body. So we're creating, it's almost like anti-aging for the target area. So we spoke about heart earlier, you know, the blood vessel and the heart bioregulator, just cycling that every now and then, just to make sure you're trying to regulate your heart functionality as much as possible.
So you're obviously now very heavily involved with Bionic. What's your specific role there?
So in the UK, I had DN Lab Research.
Yeah.
That was one of the first peptide companies I think that I set up in 2020. They acquired 50% of that business, and so basically, we called it's now called Bionic Lab. So DN has actually changed its name to Bionic Lab, and I'm the co-founder and 50% shareholder of that business.
And then your role within that is also trying to like educate within that, because obviously you mentioned you do like a lot of consult calls with people as well to try and put kind of advice and guidance into the marketplace.
So Bionic, you know, they've grown an amazing business, and you know, the personalised supplementation, great marketing team, logistics. So you know, they turn over 20 times more than what DN did, and they've got that team set up. So they said, look, we take all that, and you just do what you're good at. You know, and you go and talk about the peptides, educate yourself more, educate people. Maybe we're even looking at doing an academy. So just really go down that road, because that's what you've got the passion for. So just you focus on what you've got the passion for. We'll do all the clever stuff,
the boring stuff on the back end. And then for you on your end, like, what's the thing you're most excited for in terms of like where peptides are going like next 3 to 5 years?
I think it's the not so much the regulation, but understanding the source of the peptide. And I think as we become more educated, I always see these comments on social media, they all come from China. You know, we're speaking about the US market because everyone's talking about FDA, and 80% do come from China, raw material. But I've already spoken about, you know, from raw to going into the vial, the contamination.
Yeah.
So it's just understanding that we've got a really good, clean, trusted source, and that over the years, working with the correct people that have these tried and tested protocols. So, and I think making the source more regulated is going to be the key. And then obviously we're going to be hopefully, I mean, there's a lot of doctors that are just creating a real mess with peptides, but the educated doctors that have been working with peptides for many years, have the functional medicine background, integrative medicine background, understand biological individuality. Combining those two together, I think that's the future.
So what you said there in terms of like the clean peptide sources, what are the issues with some of the other peptide sources? The fact that the results aren't what they should be because it's not as effective in terms of the actual product?
Yeah, so I'm not going to say any names, but in the investment into independent testing, I've tested other people's peptides.
Okay.
Generally, I have to say, most don't have endotoxins, which was my biggest fear. Most have
what's endotoxins, to explain?
It's basically getting contaminated, the peptide being contaminated, and you're injecting toxins into your body, which can cause all sorts of problems. So very rare do I see high endotoxin levels. Okay. Purity is generally always good as well. You know, the threshold is 95%. Ours are always sort of 99, well, sort of 99.5 upwards, really. So that's generally quite high as well. So all of a sudden, 80% of the products are good. What I do see is they're all underdosed massively. So like 20, 30%. So they're doing the peptides, like you've got a 10 milligram BPC, and it's got like 6 or 7 milligrams in there. That seems to be the biggest thing we're coming across at the moment. And that would be probably maybe they're not doing it on purpose. They just don't have the specific, precise equipment to do the accurate measurements. That's me being positive.
Is that, without naming it, is that products coming from specific areas? Is it one's coming from India? Is it one's coming from anywhere? Or
everywhere. Even one of the European suppliers I tested, and they were low. Some of the Chinese and Indian products were low. So they call it the name of the peptides, the name of the peptide assay. Yeah. And that's just how much of the actual peptide's in there. And it's rarely, more often than not, it comes up much lower than what it should do.
And you've never seen them overdosed, I imagine.
No, but to be fair, our peptide pens, when we have them tested, they're normally a little bit over. But when you do your protocol, obviously we're talking 0.0 of a milligram when you do the injection. So it's better to be over than under, within reason. Of course, you have that reference range. And also the purity does drop. It will drop at some point. Yeah. So that's almost like mitigates that, because if it's a little bit high when you start, the assay still, even though it drops, it's going to sort of mitigate that. So it's good to be a little bit over, but not too much.
Outside of peptides, kind of like other health supplements that people can essentially kind of inject, what's your opinion on, say, something like injectable glutathione or maybe like cerebrolysine? Obviously, they do focus on two different things.
Glutathione, it's not something I've really felt the road to go down. We used to offer glutathione. I have a lot of my peptide clients that take glutathione just for detoxing and liver, and they like it. I think getting the dosing right is key because everyone's so different. I know some people that have taken a decent, low dose of glutathione and just felt terrible because they were so toxic. So again, it's understanding your protocols, not just saying I'm just going to inject glutathione. You need to understand what's going on in the body. So again, that's trial and error. Start low and slow. And
then cerebrolysine is obviously a very different compound.
Cerebrolysine for cognitive performance. I mean, for me, I think we might have even discussed it on our podcast a few years ago. For me, doing that, I tried intramuscular, I tried subcutaneous, and I tried IV. And I've got access to people that can do IV for me at home and here actually. And IV was by far the best.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
By
How
far.
much were you taking though?
I was doing 5 milligrams every other day for 20 days.
Okay.
And at the end of the 20 days, that was a bit of a game changer. It's just going through. It's just I should do it more, but it's just annoying having to go and get the IV. You got to do that one arm one day.
Can I come to you to do it?
You will be soon.
Sign me up. I'm in. First customer. Because I really like cerebrolysine, but to take enough of it via injection is a pain in the arse.
Yeah. Did you do IM or?
Yeah, intramuscular. I tried sub-Q and it was just like, it's not good. So then did intramuscular.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, most of the results we hear are good, but IV was the game changer.
Why is that? Do you think it's just 'cause straight into bloodstream? You can do higher doses?
Yeah. IM is a good way to obviously assess how you respond to it. But IV, it just seems to just go straight into the bloodstream as IVs do. And I started to feed it throughout, but literally at the end of the 20-day cycle, I just woke up and just got this pop of clarity. My mind felt so clear.
Cool. Is there anything else you want to kind of finish with? You could think you could give some value to the kind of audience listening to this, Dean?
I think we've discussed everything.
Now, if you enjoyed this clip and you're a coach, creator, or a business owner and you want help in terms of how to scale your business using ads, AI, content, marketing, a lot of things we talk about on the show, then hit the link at the top line of our description in the YouTube video. You can book on a call with us and we'll walk through the whole process, audit your business, and show you where there's huge, huge opportunities for you to scale.